everybody. Let me get this straightened out. There we go. Hello, hello, hello. How are you? Hello, Mr. Thomas. Um, Let me check real quick, see if we've got questions already. I don't think we do, but we can always check. So, been a while since we've done this, and yeah, so I've been busy with gigs and rehearsals, and so we can pretty much say that I'm back to normal. Which when I was in the hospital, everyone kept saying you'll be back to normal in no time, and I was like, what a frightening thought. I was never normal to begin with. What are they calling me? What are they doing? Huh? So oh, I just closed it. But yes, back to normal for my normal, right? Oh, doing it again. Yeah, back to normal, playing gigs and stuff like that. It's so nice to you know be able to walk to the gig without taking from the parking lot to the stage without taking a rest. I have a gig on Wednesday, and I was telling the leader, I said, yeah, because I quit taking gigs, really, except for the easy ones. I quit taking gigs in November of last year. And couldn't practice. You guys saw the results of that with the videos. And now the only reason I'm not putting out a bunch of videos right now is because I don't have time to make the recordings. So that's another thing. Anyway, I don't see any questions. Maybe I do. Nope, that's spam. Okay, I don't see questions here. Let me look one more place. You guys are encouraged, if you can't be with us live, you are encouraged to send your questions in advance. That way, we can answer the questions here. And I don't mind also mentioning real quick that the primary purpose, now I don't mind answering whatever questions you've got, but the primary purpose of this Q and A is to answer questions about my method. That's where I'm going to have the greatest authority as a speaker, is when we're talking about my method. Talking about my books, talking about the way I teach, talking about stuff like that. And obviously, if you ask me about somebody else's method, I'm not going to be an authority on those subjects. Not nearly as much. I can have an opinion. Hello. Are you for real? So, thanks for joining us. And whoever has a question, please feel free to ask. Angela. Well, hello, Angela. Nice to have you here. What questions do you guys have for us today? And just because I said that does not mean that you're not allowed to ask other questions. Of course, you can ask other questions. Most of the questions that we do answer here are the other questions, not necessarily related to my teaching method. So let me do this. Okay, so now I'm on my website and I get to see if anybody's left any questions there. And no, so Larry says, is there an advantage to playing gold-plated mouthpieces? I have the same Shoki mouthpiece, S7B4, and the gold seems better. Yes, I've heard that first of all, the gold changes temperature faster. Not sure that's enough of a reason for me, but that's one of the reasons I've heard. Second is that it's more, I forget the name of it, the word that they use, but you won't get any irritation. So like the gold will not, the what do you call it? The ions of the gold will not go into your skin. That's what people say. So if you have allergies, like a brass allergy or anything like that, which is also, I don't think, a genuine allergy, just some people are just sensitive to brass or silver. And if you gold plate it, I forget the word that they use to call what they call that. But you're gonna have less of a reaction with your lips, with the skin on your lips. As far as playing, the only other thing that I know that has an impact on your actual playing. The other thing that's not your playing, right? That doesn't affect your music. But there are some people that say, I'm sorry. Oh, this is because of the dialysis. I'm sorry. It makes me tired sometimes. Some people say that it's softer. So it doesn't have as much of a bite on the lips. And remember what I say is that because playing trumpet well is over 99% mental and only manifests itself physically. Because of that, this is how I say it, right? Because of that, anything that you think, anything that you say can actually really mess you up. The things that you think can be worse than the things that you do, because it takes so much coordination to get your lips to do what they have to do, to get your air to do what it has to do, get your tongue to do all of that stuff, that coordination, and at such minute levels that it becomes impossible to control that with your conscious mind. And so if it is mental, then the things that we think or feel, our emotions and all of that stuff can affect how well we play. It can destroy. Now, I'm still not so sure about the mechanisms of positive thought, but I am absolutely certain of the mechanisms of negative thought. And so what I'm saying is, if you've got a mouthpiece that you like, for whatever reason you like it. It doesn't matter if it's because it feels a certain way, or because it looks a certain way, because or whatever reason it is. It doesn't matter. Doesn't have to be a specific reason. If you like it when you're playing on it, it's going to help make you a better player. Now you could say that would apply to all things, right? So like if you have a a gimmick product that you really like, then that gimmick product will probably have um, an impact on your playing. We know this, right? We know this. It may not be a genuine impact, but we know that because it what it does to us mentally can actually straighten us out. I believe this so much that I believe that the reason most people don't play better than they do is because of the mental stuff, is because of the stuff they think to themselves. They have faulty negative thinking that uh, ruins everything. It ruins their sound, it ruins their range, it ruins all of this stuff. Anyway, Angela says, my pleasure. I'm a beginner trumpet player and I would like to hit high notes without feeling exhausted. Okay, well, that's sort of like what we were just talking about. Um, what it takes to play higher is so far beyond what we can do with our conscious mind. So, whatever it is that you try to do will almost always make it worse. Whatever it is that you try to do to make your range better, and by the way, that's what we mean by range. When we're talking about range, it's kind of a terrible term because um, most people are only talking about extending their range up when you can extend your range down and still get a bigger range, right? So it's kind of a misnomer, but that's what we call it. And yes, so I actually firmly believe, and this is coming from somebody that had difficulty with range when I was younger. That's where my method came from. Not just the range, but the endurance. And uh, so I came out of that in the 80s with a method that I had to basically figure out myself because of the way things were back then, uh, with, with access to teachers and stuff like that. I had a teacher at the time, but his philosophy was don't mess with your embouchure unless it looks bad. And according to him, mine didn't look bad. And I teach the opposite right now. I teach that what it looks like has nothing to do with anything, right? What it looks like, you can have a terrible looking embouchure. Um, I had someone send me a picture yesterday or 2 days ago and said, "How bad is this?" And it's not bad. Now if someone were to say, if they were to send a video with a recording that sounded bad, and then the embouchure looked bad, then we might explore that just to make sure. But no, we don't go by looks. But yes, so how do we play higher without feeling exhausted? First of all, I'm gonna plug my book. I have a book called One Range, and the whole point of the book is to give you a strategy It's got more details about what I'm going to tell you now, but I don't mind sharing. Uh, I was about to say bits and pieces. It's not bits and pieces. This is the approach. It just isn't the whole, all of the details. Okay. So when you spend more time in the upper register, your mind gets used to it and you start playing very differently. Now, here's the problem. If you go too high for where you're at now, if you go too high, what your mind becomes familiar with is detrimental to your playing. And the way I like to describe this, let's say your real range is up to G above the step, and you're shooting for C's, a perfect fourth higher. If that's where you're at right now, trying to play high C right now, like I said, a perfect fourth higher than your current range. When you do that, you have to do something different to get the notes. Why do you have to? Be- Largely because of what I was talking about. Why do you have to? Because you don't have yet that familiarity that we're talking about, that will give you that subconscious control of the lips, of the tongue, of the air, all of that. Now, there is also depending on how high you're playing, there is also a physical component. Anything up to high C, you have a physical threshold you have to cross. And that's very important. You have to take that into account. So when you do play too high, trying to get high notes, what you have to do to get those notes is markedly different from what you should be doing. That's why I call my method one range, because we want the way we play the trumpet to be the same regardless of what register we're playing in, whether it's low notes, high notes, medium notes. We want the way we play to be the same for all of it. And if you're playing higher than you're currently capable of playing, then you can't have that. You have to do something different to get that note. So, what's the answer to that? Because that almost sounds like I'm telling you, don't learn how to play high. And that's not what I'm saying. So, what am I saying? I'm saying go only up to as high as you can already play, but spend a lot of time doing that. All of my exercises, all of this stuff, go from your lowest range to your highest range for that day. Lowest range, highest range. And this is what builds familiarity. It's the familiarity. Let me also say this. It takes more time to build familiarity, the kind of familiarity we need to play the trumpet well. It takes more time to build familiarity than it does to build chops, to build muscular strength. Muscular strength, if you do it right, is pretty quick compared to getting the lips to do what you want them to do properly. Okay? So, yes, this is to me, this is how we do this. The one range approach takes your exercises, whether it be long tones, lip slurs, scales. Your exercises go up to your current range and back down, up to your current range, back down, up to the top of your current range, back down. Okay. Now, there's more to my system than just that, because we can make the physical stuff improve faster with a sequence of days off. This was first introduced. This is not my original idea. I think this was first introduced as a high note technique by the guy that wrote this book, uh, Triple C in 37 weeks. Is that triple? Does he use triple or does he say double? I think it's triple. Oh, he says double. Double high C in 37 weeks. And basically, he's got an approach where you practice one day, you take the next day off. You practice the next day, you take the next day off. Now, why don't we just do that? Well, because most of us can't take time off of the horn. Not like that. Not every other day, according to that schedule. That schedule is completely unreasonable for anyone that's doing any kind of playing outside of their home. Now, let me say this though, for beginners, and who do I consider a beginner? Well, let me say absolute beginners, right? Because I have two beginner levels. If your range is up to C in the stuff, then I also encourage you to only practice every other day. Okay? Because that's going to get your chops stronger faster. All right? So that's another part uh, of my method, the one range method. Hello, Jeffrey. Um, Angela says I have problems getting water out of my trumpet. Uh, so sometimes that can mean that the instrument's dirty, and well, I don't. Everybody's trumpet is dirty. Um, but what I'm talking about specifically here is if you have um, that slimy stuff, everybody gets it. Everybody gets it, so don't be. If it's got the slimy stuff, the slimy stuff inside can cause the water to um, not go to the hole. Now, let's talk about the proper way to get rid of the water, because the instrument should be at that angle. So if there's somebody that's putting the instrument like this and putting the water key, the water is still here. If you open it here, even if you blow, a lot of that water is not going to come out. You have to put it at the angle so that the water key is actually at the bottom of the tube. Okay, so that's an important part of getting that water to come out right. All right. Angela says I have improved because I have been practicing. Well, good. Nice to hear that. That's good to hear. All right, what else? Any other questions? Any other questions? Larry says, what is the difference between your daily routines, Chops Express, and Trumpet Chops books? Okay, so daily routines is the earliest version of the routines. I think the biggest difference, let me outline, because the one thing you can say that makes them all the same is that they're all physical trumpet pyramid, right? What is that? That's the order of the exercises. So they all start with air. They all have lip buzz second. Now, I don't think that the first book, I don't think the daily routines had the mouthpiece placement. I might be wrong about that. I don't have it here in front of me. So yes, that's what makes them all the same, is the order of the exercises, except when I first wrote the Daily Routines book, which was, I probably wrote it 1989, and only really published it in 90, 91, somewhere around there. And when I wrote it, I included the tonalization studies, which are my scales. I included the scales as an afterthought because, remember, I wrote that book for my students. I wanted my students to have these exercises available to them. And I figured that the scales were just as important, if not more important, than the other exercises. So I included them, but at the time, didn't see a place for them in the pyramid. So that's one major difference, is that the tonalization studies in the Daily Routines book are at the end, which is not, in my opinion, the best way to do it anymore. The other books have the daily routines between the long tones and the, what did I say? The other books have the tonalization studies. I said the wrong thing. The other books have the tonalization studies between the long tones and the lip slurs. So you have long tones, tonalization studies, lip slurs. Okay. One other difference is that the later books also have written out pedal tones. And those written out pedal tones are, so in the first book, in the Daily Routines, I think I said, if I remember this right, it said, now why do I say, well, if I remember this right? Because I don't use this book anymore. I don't use it with my students. I don't mind selling it because it still works. But the newer books are better. So I don't work on it in my own playing. I don't work out of the Daily Routines book with my students. The students get either Chops Express or the Trumpet Chops books. Okay. So another difference, another improvement, let's call it an improvement. Another improvement is, besides the pedal tones, is that I introduce in the new exercises, in the new long tones, I introduced now lip bends, which I wasn't doing when I wrote the first book. So since I wasn't doing them at that time, they didn't end up in the book. Great benefit to doing, as part of your long tones, great benefit to doing the lip bends. Now, another difference in the exercises for the new exercises is that they are almost all expansion exercises. What is an expansion exercise? Expansion exercises are exercises as you go through the progress, 1 through 12 or whatever, the exercise gets not only higher but also lower. So some people would call them spider exercises. So like if you've ever done spider long tones, all of my exercises now, with the exception of the tonalization studies, are all expansion spider type exercises. And that just works better. So all of these are tweaks that I added later that make the new exercises, the exercises themselves are improved. The order itself is improved. So it's just better better routines, how much better can you still become a good player on the daily routines book? Yes. Um, and I don't think it's possible to measure the effect that it would have, the difference it would have on the student. That said, remember what we were talking about with the what do you call it, the mental side of this, that if you're doing stuff that makes you feel better about the horn when other people are telling you that you're awful and stuff like that, that these kind of mental things can have an impact on the way you play. Um, and here's what I can tell you about the newer books is that people like them. And like we were saying earlier, if if that's all it is, and I don't think it is all it is, but if that's all it is, that you just like the routine, that's significant. That's significant. That will have an impact on your playing. I truly believe that. Now, what's the difference between Chops Express and the Trumpet Chops books? That's kind of self-explanatory. Chops Express routines are shorter. And the way I like to uh, put this, when you have, when someone asks me, which one should I get? And I ask them, how much do you practice a day? If they're practicing an hour a day or less, the cutoff is at the hour. More like 2 hours, but hear me out. If you're practicing an hour or less, then you should be doing Chops Express, not the other one. And the other one, so why did I say 2 hours? It depends on how advanced you are. The more advanced Chops books can take, I have students that it takes them 2 hours to get through. I, I, I still don't quite understand that. So, yeah, I still don't quite understand that. It shouldn't take that long. But I get that it does. I understand that it does. But anyway, that's the difference between those books. Now, they are all, let me say this so that it's clear, they are all routine books, not necessarily warm ups. And let's talk about the difference between a warm up and a routine. A warm up is specifically what it says, something to get you ready to play. A routine can have warm up properties. In other words, if you do the routine, you're going to get a warm up. But it's also going to have exercises that you do on a regular basis to make you a better player. For example, when you do the lip bend, that's not to get you warmed up, not necessarily. The lip bend is, you do that because of the benefits of doing a lip bend. There are very clear benefits to doing lip bends on a regular basis. And that's why we do them during the routine, because that way you have a set aside time to do those things like scales, like lip bends, like long tones, that are going to make you play better over time. Not just a warm up to get you ready for now. So, yes, these are routine books. I do have a free download on my website that's a quick warm up. If someone doesn't have time to do a routine, not even a 15-minute routine, then they can download that free warm up and uh, practice that as a warm up. It's it's the same structure. It still follows the physical trumpet pyramid, but it does it more loosely and more quickly. All right. Angela says it's hard. Wait, I just love playing trumpet because it also helps my singing voice. I sing in a choir too. Oh, that's nice. It's hard, and I stop when I feel deflated. Okay. Larry says, "Oh, okay, great. I have the One Range book, currently reading it, and plan on ordering the Trumpet Chops Tyro book soon." Okay, very good. Very good. All right. Very good. Any other questions? So I do have a gig coming up that I'm very excited about. I had this gig, I think this is our third year. I have a brass trio that plays Christmas music, and there's an event in Houston. Now this is the special grand opening event. I don't know whether or not the public is invited. Maybe they are, but it's really really expensive. If it's open to the public, it's really really expensive this first night. But it's the Nutcracker Marketplace or whatever they call that. And my group is playing in the foyer Christmas music. My brass trio instrumentation is trumpet, trombone, and tuba, and I'm using guys from the symphony. I got um, my good friend Dave Kirk from the symphony, and yeah, I'm just looking forward to this. And afterwards, when my group is done, after I pack everything away, I get to join the stage with my other good friend David Caceres for some jazz Christmas carols. So that'll be fun. Yeah, it's just nice right now. It's very, very nice to to be able to play gigs like that again. Angela says, "Thank you for answering my question about emptying the water. I was holding my trumpet wrong." There you go. Larry says, "You posted on Facebook looking for old recordings of yours. Were these on cassette, vinyl LP, or CD?" He says he'll try to help. Um, Actually, I think they were just digital. I used to have them on my website, my old website, not the new one. I used to have them on the website, and people would just download them and listen to them. Uh, there was nothing ever. That's why I'm looking for them, is I would like to put them on YouTube. Oh, that's true. He says the Internet Wayback Machine might help. That's possible. I don't know how far back, and I don't know if they actually save MP3s. That might be something that they don't do. But yeah, I've looked. You know what I think might have happened? I think it was back during uh, short file names. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? You older people would know what I'm talking about. Short file names, because we only got long file names. I don't know, around, well, like late 90s, I think. I don't remember. Let's look. So when did long file names start? 1995. Hello, Seppo. Nice to see you. And Yeah, I think I saved them in some abbreviated name, so when I do a search on my computer, it doesn't come up. I hope that makes sense. Angela says, is there a quality difference in playing an expensive Yamaha trumpet as opposed to a Bach trumpet? No, not, especially not for beginners. Uh, as a beginner, there's very little difference any trumpet will make. You can buy the cheapest trumpet out there, and it's not going to make much difference in your sound yet. Not yet. Now, here's the thing. The reason why we don't buy the ultra cheap stuff is because it can't really be fixed. You won't, I guess that depends on where you live, but you can't get parts. Now, there's the logic that says if I can buy a trumpet for 50 bucks, even if I can't get parts, even if I destroy it somehow, it's just 50 bucks. I can go buy another one. So I do have a lot of students that play on those $50 trumpets. Even 100 bucks, if you take care of the horn. I have a student that bought a $50 horn, and the family, because the family, like almost everyone in the family, I'm exaggerating, but there's like 3 trumpet players in the family, and they've been passing this $50 trumpet down. And yeah, so the same $50 trumpet that they were using 10 years ago. So, and they did eventually get a better horn because as you get better on the instrument, you can tell the difference between a a better horn. So Angela says, I bought a Bach trumpet, which was mid-range in price, and it's nice. That's good. Yeah, at this point, it doesn't have to be expensive. And you know what I like to say? That finding the right equipment is a lifelong pursuit. And what we do as we get older, as we get more advanced, we start to narrow down our expectations. We start to find the little details that we prefer. It's not it's not like what a lot of people would think. You don't go to a better horn. You go to a horn that's more suited for you. Seppo says, at which point do you introduce the chromatic scale for your students? Um, I do an introduction at the Tyro level. That would be in the end of the first year or in early in the second year. And sometimes I forget to do that because we get so wrapped up in the major scales. Um, but officially, that's my stance, is that we do start that young. Uh, we prefer to do that with the expansion study. So we want to do it's especially true for chromatic and especially true for the beginners. So we do C, C sharp, C, and we do that 10 times. C, C sharp, C, C sharp, C sharp, C, C sharp, C sharp, C. And then we go, after that's done 10 times, C, C sharp, D, C sharp, C. We put a fermata on the new note. Whatever the new note is, we put a fermata on that. Angela says she's very happy with her trumpet. There you go. I'm sure it's a pretty one. Is it silver or is it lacquer covered? So yes, I do try to get them started with the chromatic scale pretty early. Pretty early. Or maybe that's not early, I don't know. But let me tell you this though. Um, before they do the chromatic scale, so this is what I think is more important in terms of when they start. It's not a time period. I should have actually thought of that when I was answering your question. It's not a time period, it's do they do these other things first? And that's why I think sometimes we don't do it in the lessons. I don't assign it as soon as they should be getting it because they're taking too long with the easier skills. So I want them to do up to 3 flats and up to 3 sharps before they learn the chromatic scale. And some of the students just take a lot longer to do that. So Seppo says, which are your favorite chromatic scale studies? I still just do the tonalization stuff. It's just 12 of the tonalization studies. And for the younger kids, we don't do that. So we have the 3-note pattern, the 4-note pattern, and then what would be thirds, but it's not thirds, it's whole steps, right? So exercise number 9. Right, we would do that. Plus the other 3 variations of that. Just like the tonalization studies, I do not do the full 20 of the tonalization studies simply because those are interval studies, right? And I would rather have the students work on that later. So, but yes, that's so I want them to do the expansion study first, and then after that we do those 12 tonalization studies. I still call them tonalization studies. The tonalization studies are not just 4 major scales. Every scale that you practice can be done with tonalization studies. And we still call it thirds, at least I do, even though, like if we're doing pentatonic, right? Most of those are not thirds, most of those are fourths. I still call it thirds because you're skipping every other note. I love, while we're talking about it, I love the quote unquote triads in the pentatonic. I love that. I love that. You know, if you want that's probably one of the first steps as a jazz improviser. That's probably one of the very first steps you should take to becoming a modern player. You know, I've had guys take lessons with me for jazz improv that could already play, but they wanted to learn how to play modern stuff. And that's one of the first things we will do is learn the pentatonics. Not so you can improvise with the pentatonic skill, but because of all that wonderful perfect fourths, and it's just great. It's the best way to get introduced to the perfect fourth stuff. So yes, it doesn't matter what scale you're doing, you can still do the tonalization studies on them. I do have at the pro level pentatonic tonalization studies. I also have somebody approached me one time, asked me to write a book. Nothing ever came of it, but that's all right. And what he wanted was a combination of my expansion thing, but with the pentatonic tonalization studies. And the guy was starting a business. I don't understand what he was trying to do. I think he was in the Netherlands. Uh, but yes, he didn't, never followed up. I sent it to him, never heard back from him. So, every time someone says, oh, you're going to make money, you're going to make money, my whole career is filled with people promising stuff like that. And when I hear these promises, and I know this sounds, I know this sounds like, what do they call it? Sour grapes. It's not sour grapes. If it was sour grapes, I would have quit a long time ago. Right? If it was sour grapes, I would have quit a long, long, long time ago. But that, and if it was sour grapes, I would have been complaining about it on this forum all along. I'm only talking about it now because it's come up, right? You cannot believe how many broken promises I've had in my career. It's unbelievable. And the way the broken promise thing works is you don't. If you're a freelance player, you can't afford to pass any of that stuff up. If it's true, that might be the opportunity of your lifetime. But they know that. And so that's how they get you to do what they want you to do, what they want you to do, right? So they make all these promises. And I'm serious. I'm talking about the number of times that these promises are actually materialized in my career is less than 90. Less than 1%. Let me say it that way. I was about to say it in the negative. Less than 1% of the time. A lot of people will promise you the world, and it's just not true most of the time. I'm talking about from little things to big things, career opportunities to opportunities for next week. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. I used to play a lot of salsa gigs. They told us at one of the gigs that I didn't want to take that there was going to be free food. And they were telling us what kind of food. We get there, there's no food whatsoever. Not free, not paid, no food whatsoever. That kind of stuff. So little nitpicky things to people offering you jobs that never materialize. And I mean jobs like hey, we want you to be our camp director or stuff like that. Um, yeah, it happens a lot. Angela says it's lacquer colored. Before I began learning trumpet, I learned to sight sing and read music, which is mandatory for choral singing. That's right. And that's going to really help you with your trumpet playing. Seppo says, what is your favorite of the J.S. Bach compositions? I have a lot. I like this one. I like the he's got so many grand, amazing things. And I don't think they were originally grand. If you read the history of Bach, it was Mendelssohn, I think. Was it Mendelssohn who later took all of Bach's stuff and reorchestrated it for a bigger ensemble? Um, I don't think most of Bach's stuff was as grand as that, and I appreciate more his little things. Um, I love that. I just love that little. You know, I think it's a some sort of dance. I love that. It's such a beautiful melody. There's another one similar to it. Um, oh, so I learned these things in different keys from the original. So here's someone, dear gamer, dear gamer, says hi, Mr. Lewis. Well, howdy, howdy. Nice to see you. Um, so yes, I like those kinds of Bach pieces. I know other people have, uh, like they like the cantatas, and actually, what I just played, I think, is from a cantata. Um, but I like, yeah, those nice simple melodies. They're so pure. They're so pure. I make my students learn those. That's why I don't know what the original key is, because I put it in this key um, for my students, for my beginners. Um, but that's the kind of stuff I like from Bach. There's also that one. I rewrote that in eighth notes, and in a different key, and I do that with my students too. I actually have a student. Sometimes she's on here. Um, I have a student that's now learning a a more advanced version of that one. I forget what it's called. Um, and she's going to be performing it at her church coming up soon. That's exciting. Dear Gamer says, greetings from Germany. I picked the trumpet up 1 year ago. After 10 years of pause, now I joined a big band at my university in Stuttgart. Wonderful. Very nice. I like Stuttgart. I was there. Actually, I lived there when I was like 2 years old. Um, so my dad was military. He says, now I am getting back in shape with your daily routines, light, and I love it. Well, that's great. That's Daily Routines Light is another title. That's the subtitle for um, Chops Express. Yeah. Very good. I'm glad to hear that. I am glad to hear that. Wonderful. All right. So it looks like we're out of time. If you have any other questions, let me know. We can um, we can answer one or two before I sign off. I apologize for my hair. I still haven't got my hair cut. All right. Well, you're welcome, Seppo. Nice to see you. All right. Well, we'll close it down. I hope you guys have a great week. We will probably have another one next time. Um, We'll see you guys next time. Have a great week. God bless you. Bye.